Grüß, willkommen in einem Video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 25 of my organisational series of videos. In this video I'll cover the German airborne divisions and how they were structured during the war. I created these videos in order to assist my efforts in creating army lists for a number of different micro-armour sets of rules. I found it surprisingly difficult to get accurate information on the subject. Either I could obtain an accurate snapshot of formation, but could not obtain info on the changes which occurred, or there was a serious mismatch between the formal organisation and the actual organisation in the field. This was especially an issue for the German Fallschirmjäger division, or divisions. They provided, or at least in the early war, a rather fluid formation structure, often difficult to pin down with any degree of accuracy. I'll only cover the Fallschirmjäger divisions in the early war, where they were used in an airborne manner. I am aware they conducted paradrops in the later war period, the largest being in Sicily in 1943, but this was more a reinforcement of effort rather than an actual drop into enemy-held territory. Before I proceed, just a quick caveat. My analysis of TNEs have been focused on creating army lists for micro-armour sets of rules. As a result, it may not meet the robust standards of historical analysis. So if your expectation is an in-depth, never disclosed historical analysis of the structure of the division, this may not be what you're looking for. This will probably be a bit more higher level. A quick note about my sources. In some cases I've obtained high quality official structures, in other cases unreliable TO&E diagrams. The bulk of my information comes from the excellent Niehorst documents. In this case I used the sources from Karl and the www.niehorst.org site. My other sources are very numerous and I'm not going to list them, but they range from wargaming TO&Es to from the 70s to Wiki. Final point I wish to note is I generally do not include transport, signals, supply and other administrative formations. My main focus is combat troops, although in an emergency I have to admit non-combat troops often found themselves in combat. The 1st German Airborne Division was formed in October 1938 under Commander Major General Kurt Student. At the start of the war, or start of World War II, the division contained 2 parachute regiments. It went through significant changes between 1938 and 1940, where it was first used. As you can see, this is not a complex divisional structure, and elements of the divisions were used as on a as-needed basis. It was supported by elements of an air landing division in many operations. In May 1940, the 1st Fallschirmjäger Regiment consisted of 3 battalions supported by an anti-tank company and a heavy weapons company equipped with 8cm mortars. I'm uncertain where the 2.7cm Schwer Panzerbuchse were deployed in the airborne divisions. The battalion was organised into 3 companies supported by a heavy weapons company. In May 1940, the 2nd Fallschirmjäger Regiment only consisted of 2 battalions, but was otherwise similar to the 1st Fallschirmjäger Regiment. This shows the 7th Flieger Division elements which landed at Crete in 1941. This shows the 7th Flieger Division in graphical form. This version of the TO&E contained the AA battalion, which I suspect was never dropped in Crete. By May 1941, the airborne divisions had been fleshed out to something which resembled a divisional or proper divisional structure. While the support elements were certainly light, for obvious reasons, they provided much needed additional support to the airborne regiments. When we drill down into the airborne regiment, as far as I can determine, the regimental structure had not changed, although all regiments now consisted of 3 battalions. The biggest changes were in the support formations of the division. A reconnaissance company was added, which structure I'm uncertain of. I don't really know how it was organised. A machine gun battalion consisting of 12 MMGs each was also added. I would expect these would be distributed among the regiments as required. The artillery regiment was equipped with 7.5 recoilless and 10.5 centimetre recoilless guns, and in some cases 7.5 centimetre infantry guns. I'm uncertain, but each battery would have likely consisted of 6 guns, which is what occurred by October 1941. The anti-tank battalion significantly was beefed up its anti-tank capability, being equipped with the 3.7 centimetre anti-tank guns. A flak battalion was also added, which was equipped with 2 centimetre flak. This did not land at Crete. Finally, an engineer battalion was included, consisting of 3 companies of combat engineers. This shows a structure in October 1941, which was likely the structure of the division when it was deployed in Russia. This dropped back down to 2 regiments, the 1st and 3rd in this case. The AA assets were allocated to the regiments in this structure rather than being under divisional control. The artillery in this case used 7.5 centimetre mountain howitzers. This particular TO&E comes from Wiki, and I'm uncertain of its exact date. I suspect this is the structure when the division was converted into the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division. Let's attempt to go through a chronological breakdown of the formation of the division. In September 1938, or formed on the 1st of September 1938 in Berlin for the paratrooper branch of the Luftwaffe as the tactical headquarters and staff for these forces. On the 1st of September 1939, at this time the division consisted of 2 subordinate parachute regiments, 1st and 2nd, and attached support forces. There was next to no employment of paratroopers during the campaign in Poland, aside from 2 battalions that were air transported into Poland during the last few days of the campaign. The first real use of the airborne formations were in the occupation of Denmark and Norway in April 1940. On the 9th of April 1940, a few separate companies of paratroopers took part in the campaign that began on this date. They were used to seize airports or airfields prior to the arrival of troops aboard transport aircraft. The airborne troops were also involved in the attack on France and the Low Countries between May and June 1940. On the 10th of May 1940, a divisional paratroopers and support forces played a vital role in seizing key bridges and fortifications along the Albert Canal in Belgium and around Rotterdam in Holland, to mention only the most important actions. The next use of the airborne formations were in the Balkan campaigns, April 41 to May 41. On the 6th of April to the 31st of May 1941, airborne and glider operations along the Corinth Canal in Greece occurred, and during the invasion of Crete, which was their biggest utilisation. The airborne forces were next used in north and central Russia between June 41 and spring 42. In the fall of 1941, 7th Flieger Division was renamed Transportstaffel 11, part of the 11th Fliegerkorps. During the winter of 1941-42 to spring 42, the paratroops fought as company and battalion-sized infantry units on the Leningrad front around Lake Ilm and along the front between Smolensk and Moscow. During the period between 42 and 43, the airborne forces moved back to France. On the 18th of August 1941, a Fliehrsturz, or Fi-156, belonging to the Stab, or the airborne forces, crashed and burned after takeoff on a plane flight from Cerissi to Bella Etoli, killing a number of commanding officers. Otherwise, not much really occurred with the division during this period. Once the full division had been moved back to France on the 1st of May 1943, the division was refitted and expanded in southern France and renamed the 1st Fallschirmjäger Division. This video is mainly based on research which is designed to create army lists and microarmor sets of rules, which use a platoon to company size formation as its basic element or base. As a result, it's not focused on low-level structure of any formation, which would be the case if it was designed for skirmish or squad scale rules. When you're using a scale of 1 base equals a platoon, and even more so if 1 base is equals a company, it's extremely difficult to field accurate formations as single elements or bases. Instead, a battalion can be selected, all the manpower and weapons total, and then divided by the required divisor, perhaps 5 for tanks and guns and 50 for manpower. The result becomes an accurate battalion, but below that point the elements do not really represent any specific formation. At a company scale elements, this aggregation is done at a regimental level rather than battalion level. The result of all this aggregation is battalions or regiments are historically accurate, giving a player the required level of national differences to make the game more interesting and less a chess-like board game. For skirmish squad level games, the focus needs to go down the organisational hierarchy, which is not being attempted in this video. And so now I come to a close of my episode 25 of my organisational series of videos covering German airborne divisions and how they were structured during the war. Just a note, I'm only including the division when it was actually being used in an airborne form. The latter divisions were really just ground forces that were capable of being moved by aircraft in an emergency as occurred in 1943. Alle guten Dinge kommen zu einem Ende.